Hey there, everybody. How's it going? It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. More ranting, raving, and flaming. But this time, uh, I have been wanting to do a ranting, raving, and flaming video for a bit, but, I've been holding myself back until I can. Okay, so these Seven Deadly Sins videos. Today we're going over Gluttony and Pride, the last of the Seven Deadly Sins. But uh so if you're excited for that, get excited. But aside from that, um I've been wanting to do a different ranting, raving, and flaming. So I'll also be making that today and maybe putting it out today, maybe putting it out Thursday. But regardless, uh, that one will be about an entirely different topic. So, yeah, look forward to it. In the meantime, it is time for. Uh, it's time for Gluttony and Pride, I guess. So, first, for those of you who aren't totally familiar with this, I'm going through Seven Deadly Sins, the anime, Hazbin Hotel, and Hell of a Boss, that animated universe, and the Full Metal Alchemist universe, and I'm looking at their interpretations or like their characters who are representative of the Seven Deadly Sins, and I'm putting them in categories of worst, which could mean either a bad representation of the sin or a bad person who represents the sin, best, who represents a good person who also represents the sin, or and then we have truest, who is the person who is best at representing the sin. If that makes sense, then yeah, that was kind of impromptu. Go to the first video in the series, go to Wrath if you want something more in detail. But until that point, let us get into this with the person who is the worst sin of gluttony. And that, just checking this over real quick. Okay, yeah, I think I can show this. That is Merlin from Seven Deadly Sins. Now, if you've seen my previous videos, you might be thinking, oh, but usually you put Seven Deadly Sins characters in the best category. Well, you're correct about that. Unfortunately, Merlin does not get that privilege, because Merlin is an asshole. A conventionally attractive asshole, but still an asshole. She's not exactly the best person. She's known as the sin of gluttony, and you probably weren't able to tell that just based on her appearance. She doesn't look like she eats a lot, and that's because apparently her gluttony is more knowledge focused. Like, her hunger, that she has an insatiable hunger, is a hunger for knowledge as opposed to the traditional or conventional hunger for food or drinks or what have you. That being said, she's a bad representation of the sin of gluttony because a thirst for knowledge isn't how you traditionally see gluttony represented, but also she's a terrible person because she lied, schemed, and manipulated her way a into having the seven deadly sins all collaboratively work together to kill the Demon King with the express purpose of resurrecting a chaos god, which might have been a good idea had the embodiment of destruction not previously befriended the guy who was supposed to be the avatar of said chaos god. So, yeah, Merlin's actions not only resulted in the death of the Demon King, uh, the near death of all of her friends, and the near death of everyone in Britannia, but they were also indirectly responsible for the embodiment of destructive will gaining a portion of the power of chaos. So, yeah, she's fucked up and she's done some fucked up shit. She has a fucked up backstory to match, but honestly, in my mind, it doesn't, it's not justification enough. That being said, moving on to the best person who is also an incarnation of gluttony, and that friendly reminder, these are just my personal opinions, but that will be surprisingly the hell of a boss interpretation of gluttony, that being Beelzebub. Now, Beelzebub is a king slash queen of sin. I'm not totally sure what the terminology is, but basically, she's the ruler of the gluttony ring, and she does act like a glutton on occasion. Certainly more so than Merlin, which is why Merlin is down in the worst tier. I mean, that and her thing. But yeah, basically, Beelzebub is kind of just here by every now and again, there's a character who is in their position by process of elimination. That's what Beelzebub is. Like, she's morally speaking, she's definitely better than Merlin, and she's definitely, I'd say, at least a better person than Gluttony. But we'll get into that when we get into Gluttony. But yeah, Beelzebub is just kind of, she's a moderately good person. She can be dangerous if you piss her off, but she's also like, I don't want to say docile, but docile most of the time. She's just like chill, and she doesn't especially like go out of her way to hurt people. She throws massive parties for like abandoned strays, and yeah, she's a ruler of sin, but that doesn't mean she's a bad person. And last but certainly not least, we have our truest incarnation of gluttony, and that is, of course, to nobody's surprise, Gluttony from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, or just regular Full Metal Alchemist. I don't know. The character doesn't really change between then because it's one of the first homunculi that we're introduced to. Gluttony is, on a personal level, my second favorite of the homunculi, aside from Greed, because he's not really morally bad. Like, he's done objectively evil things, but he also helps the protagonists in some respect, and he's good at following orders. But majorly speaking, he's just a hungry little guy. Like, yeah, he kills and eats people, but he also does kind things for other people. And most of the time he's just kind of an idiot who's being manipulated by the combination of his homunculi brethren and his own hunger. So yeah, I don't think I need to justify why gluttony is the truest incarnation of gluttony. I mean, I'm pretty sure his stomach is like a pocket hell dimension, kind of, if that makes sense. It apparently what spoilers, but apparently what they tried to do was like gluttony was apparently a failed experiment to make a door of truth. So what ended up happening is it just created this pocket dimension space where everything that gluttony eats goes into. Uh with that having been said, it is time that we go into the sin of pride, which is a sin I'm sure a lot of people have been very excited for me to get to, and is also something that I'm sure a few people may find my opinions on to be controversial. But this is my series. If you want your opinions on the internet, put them on the internet. I don't care. Regardless, it's time for the sin of pride, and in my personal opinion, there is not a worse representation of pride than Pride himself, Mr. Salim Bradley. This kid who is the child body that houses the homunculus called Pride. And is Pride prideful? Yes. But for one, he's only prideful in the negative extent. Like, there is no redeeming qualities to the arrogance and pride that he has. Two, he's just kind of he's just kind of a force for evil, regardless of anything. And, honestly, like, I might have been convinced that he was the truest incarnation of pride, but he doesn't act prideful. He just acts like a child. He's a whiny, petulant child with all the power to back up his claims, but none of the abject pride or what have you. That being said, he's a terrible person, but a decent incarnation of pride. Unfortunately, decent is not enough to get him into the truest category, so here he is in the worst. That being said, I am running out of time, so now it's time to bring out the best interpretation of pride, who is, I might get some flack for this one, but Lucifer from Has Been Hotel. Now, Lucifer is like the original sinner, but also he's not really a bad guy. He's like, at least the way that the show has presented him, he's a very goofy personality, like someone that you can envision Jeremy Jordan playing, because he is played by Jeremy Jordan. But yeah, no, he's prideful and he's decent as an interpretation of pride, especially considering that is like his original sin. Like, he's not in hell because he's a king of sin, he's in hell because he committed a sin and was thus made the king of that sin. Basically, what I'm trying to say is he's generally a good person and a caring and protective father, but he is also like a king of sin, so you can imagine him being prideful to an extent. That being said, the moment that everyone has been waiting for, the moment our goat arrives, the moment that we see the truest incarnation of pride, and that, my friends, is Escanor, the lion's sin of pride from Seven Deadly Sins. Now, at first glance, you can obviously tell this man is yoked. Like, this man has peak human physicality, or at least what that time period would have considered peak human physicality. Uh, Regardless, he's ridiculously strong, and at least in his day form, he is ridiculously arrogant. He's just like, he's the epitome of pride because he has all of the power to back up everything he says, and even in a situation where he doesn't, he says, I could still kick your ass. Like, there are some lines of Escanor that are so raw and prideful that, like, I can't even encapsulate the pure ridiculousness of him saying that. He once told the king of the vampire race to apologize to him for being born in the same world as him. This man, Escanor, once saw a demon struggle to lift his axe with two hands. Excuse me for a moment. Sorry about that, but yeah. Anyone who knows Seven Deadly Sins knows that when you're glazing Escanor, you cannot glaze enough. He once, give me a sec to find the words. Oh yeah, back to what I was saying. He once saw a demon struggle to lift his axe with two hands, and then proceeded to say, it's not broken, it's just a one-handed axe. That being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe. I am out of time, so see you guys later.